Good morning. I want to ask you something before we begin. How is the preparation holding up this week? There is a particular kind of tiredness that comes with sociology optional. The tiredness of reading 100 concepts and not knowing which 10 will actually appear in front of you on exam day. That tiredness is normal, and it is exactly what today's session is built to reduce. This is the Sociology Desk, issue number 76. Today, we take one live global development and place it under a single, powerful concept from your syllabus, so that by the end of this session, you know exactly which thinker to name, which concept to anchor, and how to turn a newspaper headline into marks in your answer sheet. Here is today's theme. Governments across the world, starting with Australia and now moving through Canada, Spain, France, Denmark, and Portugal, are passing laws that ban children under 16 from using social media. On the surface, this looks like a straightforward child protection story. But for a sociology optional candidate, this is not a current affairs fact to memorize. It is a doorway into one of the most examined thinkers in your Paper 1 syllabus, Robert King Merton, and specifically his distinction between manifest and latent functions. This falls under Unit 4, Sociological Thinkers, and it is exactly the kind of contemporary application question that the UPSC Sociology paper has been rewarding since 2020. Let us build the concept slowly, because this is one you must be able to reproduce under pressure. Merton said that every social practice has two layers of consequence. The manifest function is the consequence that is intended and openly recognized. The latent function is the consequence that is unintended and often goes unrecognized, but which is still real and still shapes the outcome. Now apply this to the social media ban. The manifest function, the one every minister stands up and announces, is protecting children from addictive design and from mental health harm. That is the visible stated purpose. But you must train yourself to immediately ask, what is the latent function here? And the answer is this. These platforms have quietly become the site where adolescents form what Merton called reference groups, the peer groups against which young people measure and build their own identity. When you ban the platform, you do not delete the reference group. You simply push it underground, onto encrypted spaces the state cannot see or regulate at all. Now, you may be wondering, how do I take a two-concept idea and stretch it into a full 20-mark answer? Here is how. You bring in a second thinker to sharpen the argument, not to replace Merton, but to extend him. Robert Putnam gave us the distinction between bonding social capital, the ties within a tight group like a family, and bridging social capital, the ties that connect otherwise disconnected networks of people. Adolescent platforms generate exactly this bridging capital across dispersed peer groups. A blanket ban removes that bridging function overnight, without doing anything to rebuild the bonding capital of family or neighborhood that used to perform the same integrating role. And if you want a third, more advanced layer, bring in Manuel Castells and his idea of the network society, where identity today is built partly inside the network itself, inside what he called the space of flows. A national law is a territorial instrument. It struggles to regulate a space that does not respect territory. This is precisely the kind of layered, multi-thinker argument that separates a good answer from an excellent one. Let us fix the thinker firmly in your memory. Robert King Merton, in his work Social Theory and Social Structure, argued that a social practice must be judged not only by its stated purpose, but by its unintended and often unrecognized consequences for the wider system. That sentence, in your own words, is exactly the kind of formulation you should be able to write from memory in the opening lines of your answer. Notice what it does. It does not just describe an idea, it gives you a ready-made opening line that immediately signals to the examiner that you know the provenance of the concept, not just its label. Now let me speak to you as an examiner would, because this is the single highest value part of today's session. Picture two answer scripts on the same question about technology and social control. The average script, the one that scores around 14 out of 20, opens with a dictionary-style definition of social media, spends most of its word count describing which countries have passed bans, and only mentions Merton's name in passing, without properly separating manifest from latent function. The topper script, the one that scores 18 or 19 out of 20, does something completely different. It opens with the manifest and latent function distinction as a structural claim, not as a definition. It names Merton precisely, attributes the idea to social theory and social structure, and uses the global ban wave in exactly one or two sentences as evidence, never more. It then brings in Putnam or Castells as a second voice to deepen the argument, adds a named counterposition, for instance the child safety researchers, who argue that manifest protective intent can still override latent disruption where harm is severe. And it closes with a forward-looking synthesis about regulating platform design rather than adolescent access. Remember this refrain because I will repeat it every single day. The current event is your evidence. The theory is always your destination. If you find yourself writing more about which country banned what than about the function of the concept itself, you have already lost the marks that separate a topper from an average scorer. Here is a question in the exact spirit of what you may see in 2026. The global wave of under-16 social media bans treats platforms as sites of manifest protection and latent disruption at the same time. Critically examine this using Merton's distinction between manifest and latent functions. Take a moment after this video and actually write the opening two sentences of this answer. That single act of practice, done daily, is what separates candidates who can recall theory from candidates who can deploy it under exam pressure. Let us close the loop with a quick 4-point recap. 1. Merton separates the manifest stated function of a social practice from its latent, unrecognized function. 2. The under-16 social media ban's manifest function is child protection from addictive design. 3. Its latent function is the disruption of adolescent reference groups, which simply migrate to unregulated spaces rather than disappearing. 4. Putnam's bonding and bridging social capital and Castell's network society give you the vocabulary to extend this into a full 20-mark answer with real theoretical depth rather than a surface-level description of the news. That is our session for today. I want to leave you with one thought before you go back to your books. Preparation for this examination is long, and some days it will drain you more than it inspires you. But the candidates who eventually succeed are rarely the ones who studied the most in a single day. They are the ones who simply showed up, day after day, even on the tired days. Keep showing up. If you would like the complete written answer block for today's theme, along with the answer skeleton, the quotation arsenal, and the examiner notes, do drop your email in the comments or write to us at team.upscdesk.com and our team will share the subscription details with you. Wishing you